basically, one of the reasons we agreed to go to Jasper in the first place, and one of the questions I asked was, how are race relations there? Knowing that it was about 50%.
The population was 55, 65 or something?
Well, there was about
almost equal.
45% African American, 45% white Anglo, and then the rest of it was split between Hispanic and there are actually some Mid-Eastern and Oriental.
In '98?
In the early '90s to '98, there was some. I don't think that's probably changed appreciably since then. There hasn't been any what I would call significant growth population-wise. If I remember the statistics, the population, recent population count, it's grown some. I suspect that the shadow of that has affected that to some degree, but also
you mean negatively?
Okay. I think probably to some degree it would have to, because they expected and worked at trying to draw industry and jobs in there. They've succeeded in doing a little of that, but not a lot. And whatever has been done, I think, has been offset by a decline in the timber related industry.
We're going to get into that in just a second, too, in more depth. What about psychologically and sociologically?
Psychologically and sociologically, I think what Julie referred to a little while ago, most people there want this to go away. They don't want to be reminded of it. They don't want to be known as the town where this happened. And I told them at the time, and I wrote at the time, Jasper will forever be known, just like Dallas was known as a place where JFK was assassinated. People remember that, and when you say Dallas, people in the other parts of the world of the United States, that's the first thing to think of. And I think if you say Jasper somewhere, that's going to be the first thing people think about. It's a stigma that's going to be with the town, and they've got to learn to live with that and to deal with it and to overcome it.
Now, talk about Jasper a little bit in '98 before the murder, in terms of who were the leaders in town, what was the makeup, for example, of the school board, of the city council, and those kinds of things.
We had the mayor was black, and I use the term black because in Jasper that really was the terminology that was accepted rather than African American, and I'm not sure why, but that's why I use that term. The superintendent, the school board president was black. We had 2 school board members that were black. Is that right?
Yeah, and 2 council.
And 2 city councilmen that were black. It was a very evenly distributed, as far as race, between leadership positions in the community. The director, head of the hospital, was also
and who
a
was
black
that again?
man.
George's last name. Can't even think of it now.
That's okay. I'll probably have it on this list.
You probably do.
Probably do. And then also the executive director of the Council of Governments.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Walter
Very
Diggles.
powerful position.
Probably the strongest leader in town.
And his
still
name
is Walter Diggles.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, Deep East Texas Council of Governments.
Right. He's executive director.
Over 12 counties.
Yeah.
Okay. And so would you describe the leadership of Jasper before the murder in '98 as fairly egalitarian? For example, were there also Hispanic representatives on the school board?
There was such a small population. If I remember correctly, and I taught there when we first moved there, we didn't have a bilingual program because no one spoke a different language. I don't think we even had any children that spoke Spanish, and that's changed now, and there is a program now, but it was a very insignificant portion of the population that was Hispanic.
Right.
Okay.
We had some doctors that were Asian.
Okay. What about churches? Were they...
Which one of the 50 churches in this town of 8,000, you know?
Yeah, I know.
Predominantly Baptist, many Baptists, and very different, I don't know the different Baptist not denominations, but
I know.
breakout.
There are a lot of breeds of Baptists.
Exactly. Lots of that.
Mhm.
Methodist, Catholic Church, which was quite small, has grown tremendously. It's a very large church there now.
And who were the leaders in the Ministerial Alliance before the murder?
Before the murder, Reverend John Harden,
Mhm.
Walter Diggles, the executive director of DETCOG, is also a minister, and he was a leader in that.
Jerry Neff.
Dr. Jerry Neff, and the late
Ed Robinson?
Ed Robinson.
Mhm.
Father Ron.
Father Ron Forsage, the Catholic Church.
Was black?
No.
No,
Oh, okay.
just part
Just
of
the leaders.
leadership.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But who did I just name? The man at Mount Olive Baptist Church.
Boy, it's a good thing you caught us now. Another year, we won't remember anything. It's fading fast.
I guess the question, the
John
big picture
Harden.
question, was just, was there a racial mix in some sort of egalitarian way, I'll get that word out in a minute.
In
on the
every
ministerial-
aspect of
Ministerial
town.
Alliance.
it was.
Every
Yeah.
aspect of
Yeah.
town.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
And what about in the schools, teachers and so forth?
My principal was black. Probably about half the teachers were black
Mhm.
in the school where I was. And,
Was that unusual in 1998?
No, I don't think so. It may have been for East Texas. We moved from the Houston area, and of course it wasn't unusual there at all.
Mhm.
I don't think so.
And so, in terms of, in 2008, how would you describe the things that we just talked about? 10 years later, was that sort of egalitarian structure still in place
Mhm.
in all those other
Yeah.
places, school board and so forth?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. And then, you think Jasper's changed much in the last 3 years, from 2008 to now?
I doubt it. Not
We
as-
don't live
not-
there, so it's really hard to
Yeah,
say.
kind of hard to say now, I
Yeah.
would think. Okay.
Not-
Now, this is a tough question. Why do you think James Byrd Jr. was killed, and in such a horrific way?
I think it was a random act by the choosing of him as the victim. He happened to be out walking by himself, and these two guys, three guys, he knew the pickup. He knew the young man who owned the pickup, who ran a theater there,
Mhm.
and
Sean
they were
Berry.
acquainted. Sean Berry.
Mm-hmm.
They were acquainted. He also knew King, and I think had met Russell Brewer. Brewer was not from Jasper. King was. King grew up there. They offered him beer and got him in the truck, and of course drove out on the country road and did their brutal thing. As I say, I think they were out looking for trouble.
Mm-hmm.
They would call it something else, but trouble is a better description. And they were doing it because they were high. And the Brewer and King, of course, had been in prison, and in prison they'd been recruited into a gang that was a white supremacist.
Mm-hmm. Aaron Rice kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think theirs was Knights of the Confederacy or something was the name of theirs, if I recall.
That's right.
And King had done some writing that came out in all of this investigation that was pretty racist.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty-
He was also covered in racist
Tattoos.
tattoos
Yeah.
all over him.
So I think, as far as the victim, it was a random choice, and I think they had decided. I don't know that they decided to kill somebody, but they wanted to rough somebody up.
Mm-hmm. What about Sean Berry? Was he a rough character? The guy who was driving the truck?
Semi.
Of course, sort of. I kind of go back to something that the district attorney at that time referred to him.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody said, well, he just looks like such an innocent-looking young man, and he said, he's a bull rider.
Mm-hmm.
He's mean and he's tough. And
Mhm.
that's what he meant.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably true.
He was kind of rough, and so was his brother, who is currently a deputy with the Sheriff's Department in Jasper.
Wow.
He have Alzheimer's, and so his capacities are severely limited. I think, if I remember correctly, Clara has retired and moved back to Jasper to help.
I don't know that.
I think that's
Oh,
right.
that's good.
But one daughter, two daughters live there. Betty Byrd Boatner, and
How do you spell her last name? Willis, is it Volek?
Boatner,
Oh, Boatner.
B-O-A-T-N-E-R. And then
Mary Verrett.
Mary Durrett. Verrett. B. Does she live there now?
She did last time I heard, yes.
She moved back to Beaumont. And Thurman, the son, lives next door to the Byrd family home. He's there now.
And he just lost his son last week.
Thurman did? Yeah.
So how old was his son?
He's early 30s, I think. And
That's awfully young.
I don't know what happened. I saw the obituary. I don't know what happened.
Okay. Thanks. Well, we're going to ask you a lot more questions about people at the end, because you are the first people that we have interviewed formally for this portion of the study. So, because I knew you were rich with information, I thought it would be helpful to set the tone and give us direction for the rest of what we're going to be doing. So I really appreciate you coming today. You were absolutely pivotal, absolutely essential to what we're trying to accomplish here. And the first question's on our list. I have the same list of questions that I'll ask everyone we interview. The first question is, what's your name? How old are you? How old were you in 1998? And what's your hometown? And we'll start with you, Julie.
Okay. I'm Julie Webb. I'm 60 years old. I was 48 when this happened. I was born in Baytown, Texas, and so I've lived in several different places, but all in the same state. And we were in Jasper for 19 years? 16 years. Seemed longer. No,
Yeah.
it was 16 years. And
how long had you been there when this happened?
7.
7 years.
Right.
Okay, so a substantial amount of time.
Right.
Okay. And then your hometown, what would you say your hometown is now?
I would call Jasper my hometown now. I mean, we live in Belton, but I consider Jasper home.
Okay. Okay. And then where do you live in Belton now?
Belton, Texas. We actually live about 6 miles out of town in the country on the Lampasas River.
Oh, okay. All right. And so, Willis, would you answer the same questions: name, age, how old were you in 98, and what's your hometown?
My name is Willis Webb. I am almost 74 years old. I was 62, I believe, when this happened. And I consider my hometown, where I would call home, more recent would be Jasper.
Okay.
It's still a place where we have.
And how long have y'all lived in Belton?
Almost 4 years.
Wow. I remember when you moved there. Seems like that time went by fast, didn't it?
It did.
Yeah.
The second question is, how were you or are you still connected to the murder of James Byrd Jr. in Jasper?
We have no ties other than family ties, friendship ties with the family. We're no longer involved with any of the projects. I did participate for a while in the James Byrd Jr. Oral History Project, but I haven't done that in a while. So.
And where's that project housed?
It was housed in San Francisco, and Lanny Silver was the investigator on that. She passed away about a year ago, and I'm really not sure where it's housed now. I assume in Jasper, probably back there now, but I don't know that.
I think so.
Is it Lanny, L-A-N-N-I-E?
L-A-N-I.
L-A-N-I.
Silver.
Silver.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and she was the PI on that one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, sorry she's no longer living.
She had a brain tumor and died fairly quickly, within about 4 or 5 months after this discovery of it.
Okay. And so, how are you connected, though, with the murder and so forth, professionally?
Professionally, how were we connected to it?
Mm-hmm.
I personally was not connected until the third trial. I was teaching school up until that time, and then went to work for the newspaper, and I covered the third trial for them.
As a reporter?
As a reporter.
Mm-hmm. And so, Willis, how about you?
I was professionally connected as an editor and publisher of the Jasper Newsboy, and directed our coverage. At the time this occurred, we had a young managing editor, a hometown boy by the name of Mike Journey,
Mm-hmm.
who did most of the principal initial coverage. But I was always involved in editing, and his news stories, and then I did any opinion pieces regarding it.
Mm-hmm.
And I wound up being on civically, I wound up being on a committee that was supposed to help the town recover from this. And we were involved in several projects, including some town-type meetings on the square and that sort of thing.
It was called the Mayor's Task Force.
Mayor's Task Force,
Mm-hmm.
right.
When you compare what Jasper was like just before Mr. Byrd was murdered to what Jasper was like in 2008, 10 years later, how would you compare those two things?
Before the murder and
Before the murder in 98, and then I know there's a lot of noise around right after it happened.
Mm-hmm.
But we want to look 10 years down the road. How would you compare the community in those from one set, like if you took a snapshot, to 2008, which may blur over a little bit into what is now, but 2008 would be the 10-year time period.
Well, we left in 2007, but when we left, I'd have to say that maybe there was some slight growth, but not the initial growth that or initial reactions, as it wasn't as dramatic as right after the murder. When we moved there and before the murder, I thought Jasper had pretty good race relations to begin with. Afterwards, they're extremely overt,
Mm-hmm.
just going out of your way to be polite to everyone about everything. And 10 years later, that's worn off, and people are back to being people. And there's maybe even a slight resentment that, oh, they're going to bring this up again. It's going to be news again. We're going to be in the news again. Because we had a lot of bad publicity. And so there were hard feelings. And so, I don't know, 2008, I don't think there was a whole lot of growth. There were some. But
Do you mean they were still hurting, or they hadn't recovered psychologically? Or are you talking about, I'm going to ask you in a minute about economic growth.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm really trying to get to here is sociologically.
I'm talking about emotional growth.
Okay.
Emotional growth, yeah.
Okay.
I believe that things that happen certainly can color the way you look at life and the way you approach people. But I also think a lot of that is ingrained as you're growing up, and so most change that's going to happen that is true change is going to take generational growth for that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And Billy saw immediately that he had a tremendous problem there that he didn't know how to cope with, and called the FBI right away.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the smartest things. Billy always said the two smartest things he ever did was marry his wife Jamie and call the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
And he's right. That was the smartest thing to do. Got them involved very quickly before any evidence disappeared, and they were able to do all the detailing and analysis on the truck, and were able to very much identify that as the vehicle that was used. So the response was quick.
And how long did it take them to capture?
24 hours.
Yeah, within 24 hours, all three were
Right.
behind bars.
Exactly.
Okay.
But the FBI didn't actually get there until after that.
So he actually caught them by himself?
They really did. I mean, they helped tremendously with processing information, but they would not take over the case. He was really hoping they would, and they wouldn't do it, which turned out really well. And I think our law enforcement did an admirable job of tracking down, interviewing people, and getting hold of the information needed to find who they thought might have been involved. And they knew Sean really well, and he'd run around with their kids, and they didn't want to believe it of him, but they got the truth out of him. And well, they did a great job.
And what about law enforcement in 2007, because you left there in 7? Were there changes? Or
there were changes,
now?
A lot of personnel changes, many personnel changes by then. When Billy retired, a lot of his staff either left or, somebody new comes in, they want different people.
And so what kind of people are there now?
I think they're doing a pretty good job, just from what I read about what's going on.
But one of them is Sean Berry's brother?
Sean Berry's brother, Lewis, is...
An irony in that?
There is an irony in that he is a deputy working in the sheriff's department. So, and he's been there 2 or 3 years already.
Yeah.
So,
is he like Sean?
They were very much alike when they were growing up. I don't know what he's like now, but, boys get rough and tumble, grow up to be nice men sometimes, so you just never know.
You never know which direction.
Exactly. And I wouldn't say they were any rougher than most of the kids. I mean, you have a country community, and boys fight and go mudding and drink beer and do those things.
Well, let's go to a different question now, which is, what is the prevailing economy of Jasper compared to Mississippi?
There are certain things about society that we can't change at this time, but don't let anybody mistreat your friends, whether they're white or black. And so I grew up that way, so it was, I think, probably a little easier for me to adjust to a more integrated society than, say, a lot of other kids.
Did you have good friends in Jasper? Really good friends. I'm talking about the kind of friends you invite over for dinner, or the people you go to movies with and so forth, who were people who were black?
No.
I had people I would see during the day and go to lunch with that were friends, and like Herman Wright.
You had business relationships that turned into friendships. That's what happened. And I had, of course, teaching school, had black women that I taught with and black men that I taught with, but I can't say that we socialized outside of classroom, unless it was someone was having a shower or getting married, or then we did, but I didn't, it wasn't like...
And was that in any way changed? Let's talk about...
I think it has. It's changed a little.
I think so.
Directly after the murder, seemed to be drastically changed. I mean, people just were tripping over themselves to be nice to one another and make sure everything was fair and equal, and like I say, that wears off after a while. People can only be nice for so long, and they're not nice anymore. But I think it's probably grown some. I think it has a lot more growing to do as far as...
Do you think there's a difference in the young people in terms of level of prejudice?
I do. I think that...
In what way?
I think that gets better with every generation. That's what I was talking about earlier. I think as our children and their children get older, then those prejudices will diminish. I think that has to happen.
Did you consider yourself prejudiced before the murder in 98?
I didn't, and then I did. I mean, when it happened, everyone, I think, was looking at themselves and going, what did I do to did I do something to promote an attitude that this was an okay thing to do, an okay thing to happen? I think everybody was really soul searching. Yeah.
Ken Willis?
Yeah, I felt the same way. Having been in the news business a long time before I ever got to Jasper, my attitudes adjusted over. I had a great picture that ran on the front page of that group. The Klan on the square courthouse grounds forming a circle. Around their circle was a circle of DPS troopers.
And outside that, the Black Panthers.
Yeah. But the picture I got was this black trooper standing there, this Klansman in regalia peering over his shoulder. won a prize with it.
It was,
Yeah.
an award with that, yeah.
Wow, that must have been a tense day.
I was always a little nervous. 'Cause I was afraid somebody would take a poke at somebody and it would just explode. Well, one other thing I wanted to tell you by way of information that's kind of amusing to me. The Klan is already there, and Billy Rolls had pretty much neutralized them and not allowed any guns or anything. And he heard the Black Panthers were coming from Dallas. And he later told me he met them out on State Highway 63 was coming from Lufkin. He knew the route they were coming. He met them 15 miles out and took all their bullets. Let them carry their rifles, but
not loaded.
He took all their bullets.
Well, that was a safety measure at the time.
I never saw much sign of it. I had a guy show me one time where he thought the Klan met out in the woods, and there was ashes, like where there had been a fire there, and it was clearing, and it's entirely possible that was true.
I don't think so.
But
I
don't
think
know.
we would have known if there was a Klan there.
Yeah,
Organized Klan.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, there were a lot of people that could have qualified to have been in the Klan, I think, but I don't think there was any organization to it.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't think we had a lot of white sheets running around. I really don't. Had one guy show up, teenager, what was he, 18 or 19, from Ohio, and he said, and everybody was, a lot of them were coming, I was a clearinghouse. They would say, who do I talk to find out this? And who do I interview to find this? And that sort of thing. And I had one finally come to me, and he says, I came here looking for dirt about Jasper being a terrible town. He said, I couldn't find any. He says, you actually have a pretty good town here. I said, yeah, I know. And that was a good thing to hear. There was one guy, one reporter, but he said, he came looking for all kinds of dirt and he didn't find it. I probably could have told him where to find some, but not a lot, I think. So
Was the prison there before?
before the killing, I don't think so.
What are you talking about, the new sheriff's?
No, the prison out east of town on the
Could be a privately run prison. They moved in a lot of that.
No, it was.
No,
Oh,
that
okay.
was
TDC?
there before.
Was there?
It was there
It was
before.
built after we got there.
It was, but it was there before.
Built before the '98 thing.
Before
yes.
James Byrd
I
was
couldn't
murdered.
remember.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it already existed.
And who were the rich people?
Richest man in town was Joe Tonahale, who's passed away.
Was made his name, but not his money, as Jack Ruby's lawyer.
Oh my goodness. I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
He was an appellate attorney.
Well, he was.
He was on the, yeah, he was on
personal
the,
injury.
Okay.
but he was Jack Ruby's appellate attorney.
Oh, appellate attorney. Yes.
Appellate
yes.
attorney, yes.
Right.
Okay. What's his name? Is he alive?
No,
Okay.
he died
Joe
about 5 years ago. Joe Tonahale.
Tonahale. Tonahall.
Okay.
But a lot of the people that worked for him were still there. Joe Bob Golden, the judge, and 2 of the trials worked for him when he started out. Who else? Joe Fisher, who's also deceased now. So he had quite a crew of people that worked for him that became wealthy in their own right.
Which portion of about what percentage-wise would you say of the Jasper community were poor, what you'd call poor, and what percentage were middle class and what percentage were what you'd call wealthy?
Our unemployment rate was higher than most places.
Double digit.
Double digit the whole time we were there. I don't think it ever got out of the double digits.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd have to say our percentage of poor was quite high
Mm-hmm.
because of that.
30% maybe.
I don't know.
Hard
but
to
it's-
say.
30%,
yeah,
that's pretty up there, isn't it?
that's pretty high, yeah. I don't know if it's that
Maybe
high, but
20 to 25, I would feel comfortable it would
Yeah.
be at least 20.
it was majority lower middle class. They looked far enough ahead to purchase
Mm-hmm.
plots ahead of time.
Mhm.
And two, if they did, it was full. I mean, we couldn't get in. I mean, if we purchased cemetery plots there, it would have been in the new section.
Okay.
Which is a-
Okay.
So I
Across the
doubt
main
that's
street.
I doubt that's correct.
Okay. What did you think of media coverage?
At first, it was just horrific. It was just awful. And Willis was there, and he can certainly speak to this better than I can about the hate mail that came in from all over the
Yeah,
world.
we got a lot of hate mail.
Because of what was being printed in England and
Yeah.
New York and Colorado and
I was sent a copy of a paper from London, and the headline on it was "The Town That Shamed America."
Mm-hmm.
how about this letters about that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
pretty tall.
Mm-hmm.
Basically,
How would you say, how much hate mail did you get? I mean, could you put it in a trash bucket, or was it more than that, or?
You were still getting it when I went to work there a year and a half later. It was still coming in.
yeah.
I don't know how to
measure
gauge the amount.
Did you save it?
No.
Yeah.
Passed some of it along to Beaumont, to Hearst
Yeah.
initially, but then it just got to be such old hat.
Well, what was the hate mail saying? They were going to blow up your newspaper, or what was the tenor?
I don't remember any specific threats.
No, there were no specific threats. You just look out.
What kind of
Yeah.
people are
What-
you?
Yeah,
and
what do you think
know.
you're doing? You know,
Mhm.
are you a in lover or that
Mhm.
kind of stuff? You know,
Mhm.
and just crud.
But after the initial onslaught, things got better.
Yeah.
They did.
How
and
long do you think that took?
About a month.
About a month of
Mhm.
coverage was really.
When at first they were just looking, they filmed the very worst parts of town, the shacks that were falling down, and looking for every little intricate thing that made us look bad.
Mhm.
You know, like we couldn't look bad on our own. We had to look for something more.
Good.
And they interviewed everybody until people started running. When they saw someone with a microphone, they just turned and headed the other way.
Okay. And what's the difference now in terms of the advertisers in the newspaper? Is the newspaper anything like it was at the time?
Mm-mm.
No.
Nothing. I mean, to start with.
In 2008, for example.
When we left in 2007, we were at around 6,000 subscribers,
Mhm.
and they are now running about 1,500.
So it's gone way down.
Way down.
Okay. And what about the copy? In terms of, if you took all the advertising copy out and you took all the sort of usual syndicated kind of copy out, how much of the copy would you say is what you'd call integrated copy compared to in 2008?
Locally generated?
Locally generated, that would be about any of your Black or Asian or Hispanic community.
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that now.
Okay.
We don't take the physical paper. It's online, but then you're just seeing bits and pieces. It's not a very good online product. You're not seeing a whole lot of it, so I don't know how to
Does it
answer
have
that
a strong
either.
editorial page now?
No.
No.
Because I know that Willis had a really strong one and believed strongly in
Almost
having one of
non-existent,
those.
yeah.
Okay, and then radio stations,
KJS is still the only station there.
KJAS.
Mhm.
Yeah, and they have a code FM too. I don't know what their call letters are. But
Yeah.
they're
What
FM.
kind of music do they play on the
Uh,
FM and the AM?
I don't know. I never listened to it. I listened to his news. I never listened to his music.
Oh, he had news.
He
on the
did.
radio,
Oh,
local
did.
news.
Lots of
he's-
news.
he's-
Did he read it out of the newspaper?
He did not.
No.
He really did
he's
news.
an
He's-
aggressive newsman.
He is an aggressive news.
Oh, that's interesting. And he was there before the murder?
Yeah,
He's there now?
Mhm.
Yeah,
And what's his name?
Mike Lout, L-O-U-T.
L-O-U-T.
Good guy.
Okay.
Mhm. He
Very
did a good job.
He
rough
kept-
around the edges.
We kept each other on our toes.
Yeah.
So you actually had a sort of a competitor. Wasn't there also a black newspaper in Jasper at the time?
No.
And what?
One made a few issues, but it didn't last.
Was it before the murder that it made a few issues?
No,
After,
it was
during? After the murder?
Mhm.
Oh,
That
that's-
was Gloria. What's her name?
I don't know. I never saw it.
It didn't last long.
Oh, okay.
I thought I showed you one. It
And
didn't
what
last
political
long.
party was most popular in '98?
Democratic, if anyone asked.
If you had a primary, Republicans had a primary, if they had 100 votes, it was
So if you wanted to be
miraculous.
elected, you had to
Run on
be,
the Democratic ticket.
and if you wanted to vote, you had to vote Democratic. But nationally, it was Republican all the way.
Nationally Republican all the way. So local Democratic, national
and national
Republican.
would be-
State and national Democratic?
The Democratic.
What is it?
I mean, no, the state and national, they'd vote Republican.
Republican.
Oh, state and national
Yeah,
Republican.
yeah.
Okay. Local Democrat. Okay, and
Right.
what about, was there any difference between the political makeup between 1998 and 2008?
I don't think so.
Probably not, but we're not there, so I don't know.
It's kind of hard to say.
how
Mhm.
accurate
Well, from the
it is.
time when we left, she's saying 2008, so it's 2007. I don't think they had changed.
No.
Okay. And which ministry, I already asked you about the churches. Were the churches integrated in 1998 before the murder?
No. And they aren't today either.
They aren't today either?
11 a.m. is the most segregated hour, and probably in America, and particularly in
Yeah.
Texas.
There's one church there,
So-
Harvest Way, that is.
Yeah, Harvest Way is.
Mhm.
So
They've made a real effort, they have.
And then what was,
That's interdenominational.
interdenominational.
what was the significance of removing the fence between the black and white cemetery?
It was very significant to the black community. A lot of white people said they never thought about it. I don't know if that's true or not. It was not a very big fence in terms of the area.
Mm-hmm.
It probably wasn't over, 6 or 8 feet.
It wasn't very long now.
Mm-hmm. And tall, how tall?
Oh, 4.5 feet maybe.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm. And so that fence was removed?
Yes,
And
That was a
so-
psychological barrier.
right. I think it'd been much longer fence years before. But I don't know that.
Mhm.
But I'm pretty sure it was. Years before, Jasper was pretty strong about drawing the line.
Mm-hmm. Years before, how many years before you think?
60s, into the 60s, well into the 60s, it was,
Extremely.
I wouldn't have wanted to defend black in Jasper in the 60s.
No.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think that Jasper changed to be so much more, I think more integrated, less segregated in terms of leadership at least, other than church on Sunday